This is the London Fintech Podcast, bringing you practical insights and approaches, stories and inspiration from the innovators who are building the new world of financial services. This podcast is brought to you by NextWave, strategy specialists and solutions for financial institutions. Welcome to London Fintech Podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by one of the world's leading investment operations and technology firms. SS&C is a global fintech powerhouse and the world's largest independent hedge fund and private equity administrator and the largest mutual fund transfer agent. They serve over 22,000 organizations globally in 35 countries. The business is a unique blend of specialized services together with technology, and in many ways runs the operational engine of the investment industry, using its own software to move, value, and report on trillions of dollars in assets every day. My guest today is Rob Stone, General Manager of Intelligent Automation Analytics. Rob is very much an industry visionary. He's driving innovation, automation, and AI at SS&C and across their client base. He's also a friend of the show, having collaborated with NextWave, who are our sponsor and consulting business, on a few occasions this year, including a very well-received keynote presentation on the state of AI in financial services, which was at the Algo client event last month. And if anyone wants to see that, there's a replay on the YouTube channel if you're interested. Anyhow, welcome, Rob. It's great to have you on the show.
Thanks, Tony. Really happy to be here. It's my first podcast, so this is a big moment for me.
Is that right? Okay. We have editing capabilities, should they be required, but I'm sure they won't be.
We appreciate it.
And funnily enough, notwithstanding that we already know each other, I think this is the first time we've got to sit down and really talk about your SS&C journey and state of the industry properly. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Sure. Yeah. We appreciate the opportunity to be on the podcast and look forward to telling the story.
So let's do it. Let's tell some stories. Firstly, a bit about you, Rob. For the audience, for me, background, firms you've worked for. I suspect it might be a short list of firms, actually, because you've been with SS&C for a long time. But tell us a bit about you and what you cover within the firm.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. And so my name's Rob Stone. I run one of the business units at SS&C called Intelligent Automation and Analytics. It's about $550 million of SS&C's $6 billion in annual revenue. We've got about 1,800 people. And, what makes up the business is the Blue Prism and Chorus organization, which is our intelligent automation suite. We've got regulatory solutions where we do filings for investment manager clients all over the world. We've got Algorithmics, which is a quantitative risk management platform. And we appreciate your great keynote that you did in London for us. And we've also got, a couple smaller businesses that focus on municipal debt structuring and even timeshare management software. I joined, I'm fortunate that, the list of firms I have worked for is short. I joined SS&C right out of the University of Connecticut in the beginning of 2010, and it's been a great journey. When I started, it felt like a big company. We were 900 people. We were global. We were just about to go public for the second time with $1 billion valuation, where we priced, in March of 2010. But you kind of fast forward, and here we are, with a $20+ billion valuation, depending on the day. Like you said, 20,000 plus customers. We are truly all over the world, and we've got 27,000 people. So I started as a sales associate after graduating with a political science degree from UConn. I got a great opportunity to come boots on the ground as a sales guy in New York, calling on hedge funds. Our hedge fund administration business was just starting to get going. So on the league tables, I don't think we had even cracked the top 15 by assets under administration. Today, we are the largest, which we're really proud of. And it's really based on successful execution of a great strategy. Had some success. I mean, it was a great time to join in the hedge fund industry. There seemed to be, new hedge funds popping up on every corner of every street in New York City at that time. So there's plenty to do in terms of, carrying the bag around. And we were growing, right? We were winning deals. We saw how important, the industry was going to become. We felt like we had a great position and a great story to tell. So we started investing in that sales organization. So I got opportunities to take leadership positions as a player coach. And then I took over from my boss, Eamon Greaves, who went on to from running sales in the GlobeOp organization, which is fund administration, he took the newly created role of global head of sales for all of SS&C. So I got a chance to run the business unit sales organization. And then I joined him as the global co-head of sales, which was a great experience. And, did that for a few years before I got an opportunity to run a business. Right. So here we are today. I guess, I'm coming up on 1 year as the general manager of intelligent automation analytics, and there's a lot going on. We feel like we're in a really good position. So, SS&C has been a great company to work for. I've been here almost 16 years. I had a few stints. I worked for a summer in Australia when I was much younger, and I did a couple internships with the UConn School of Business focused on launching our risk management platform for insurers. So that's kind of my story.
Yeah, and there's so many great business leaders who've come up through a commercial and a sales route, and the timing's good, right? To be intelligent automation, all things AI in the market that we're in now. It's a really busy place. It's a fascinating time in the industry. Before we jump right into today's episode, a quick thank you to our sponsor, NextWave. NextWave is an award-winning consultancy that is helping many of the world's leading banks, investment managers, and insurers deliver on their growth, efficiency, risk, and control goals and transform their businesses. With a senior team who have come from MD-level positions in major firms like HSBC, Barclays, and UBS, NextWave has both the deep industry expertise and the hands-on capabilities in AI, data, and automation to drive real results. More business outcomes and less PowerPoint from the consulting experience, as their clients like to say. NextWave has moved 2-week manual processes to 5-minute agentic automations, rescued global banking regulatory control programs, and digitized deal platforms, sustainability, and regulatory reporting systems. And they do much of this with hands-on engineering capabilities on leading technologies, which include ServiceNow, Alteryx, Quantexa, and Camunda. So if a modern and specialist alternative to the big brand consulting model sounds appealing, one which covers the full life cycle of strategy specialists and solutions, but with small practitioner teams, rapid delivery, and a better price point, then perhaps you should talk to NextWave. Visit nxwave.com to find out more and get in touch. That's nxwave.com. All right, let's get back to the episode. I always ask guests on the show when they're not being immersed in their current business and everything that comes with it, what they do to decompress and take time off. So anything interesting that you can share?
Pretty consumed with, my wife and I are raising 2 young sons, aged 2 and 5 weeks.
Yeah.
So we're right in the thick of that. That's keeping us plenty busy, and it's it's going great. They're great kids. Ro and Otto Stone. Outside of that, I try to stay in shape. I like to go to the gym. I like to read. So, when I do have time, which is becoming, less and less of, that's kind of some of the things I like to do.
Yeah. Well, we'll come back to in the discussion. I'm curious what you're reading, but we'll come back to that. But you got kids at that age, that's just going to keep you busy.
I've continued to be really involved. I'm so fortunate to have such a great leadership team and such a great broader team, that I get to rely upon. But we're in such a unique point in time for our business, given the state of AI, and we think we've got a great position to be a leader in applied AI, especially in financial services, but strategically more broadly as well, right? Just such a beachhead already in automation, combined with such a great organization as a parent company with so many customers, so much purpose-built technology that we supply to those customers, and so much expertise that our clients rely upon us for, that bringing all those things together to affect great outcomes for our customers. That story's really resonating, and we feel like we have a right to compete, if not a right to win.
Yeah, and I think we can see that through the growth story. You talked about going from, $1 billion valuation to 20 plus. And in my words, you're providing investment operations and asset servicing across the sector, and the largest player in that sector. But the landscape during that time has also changed significantly. It's not just that SS&C has grown, but you've been working across a very rapidly changing environment. And we're essentially going from, if I was to sort of look back, perhaps 10, 15 years ago, asset servicing as a very manual back office function. And now we're talking about digitally integrated front to back operations. What do you think are the key turning points that have modernized the sector over that time?
Well, I came into the industry right as Madoff happened. So, horrible thing to have happened, but certainly an industry, sort of wake up call. But it was really a boon for asset servicers, and particularly SS&C. Whereas outsourcing to an asset servicer, whether it was, required things like custody or optional things like fund administration, all of a sudden, because of especially in alternatives, the institutionalization of that segment of the industry, institutions were no longer comfortable with internal, sort of reporting, right? There needed to be a third party validator of the existence of assets and third party valuer of the value of those assets. And that was the only way, right, that a institution like an insurance company or a global bank, right, or a pension plan was going to stay invested in that alternative fund, right, especially in the hedge fund space. So, that was a big turning point. I think, the regulatory landscape certainly changed. I think pretty soon after I joined, 15, 16 years ago, you had the enactment of Dodd-Frank, right, which all of a sudden required so much more information and so much more real time and so much more granularity to be filed on time with the regulators. And so all of a sudden, it was a little bit more complicated, more complex and costly to manage a business in the asset management space. And so you needed to have third parties. You needed them, right? But you also really, the evolution was you outsourced, right? A firm would outsource, and then they would recognize that they maybe didn't outsource to the right provider. And so you had this kind of iterative evolution of the asset servicing sort of, industry where, different players were coming in, big banks were getting out. There was a lot of acquisitions and consolidation, and I think, we and we'll come to this point. It's kind of one of the points I always try to drive home is because we started as a technology company, right? And we launched, a big expert outsourcing business focused on fund administration, which has grown to be, all encompassing of asset servicing, absent custody, right? Because we came from a technological background, we just had such an advantage. The combination of technology and expertise is kind of what can't be beat. And SS&C owns all the source code of all the technology it uses in its outsourcing business. And all that technology is also commercially available to the market. So you've got big asset managers and banks and insurance companies that use that core technology that also powers our asset servicing business. So you got two revenue streams. You have complete control over the means of production from the people to the process to the technology, including the source code, as well as we operate our own cloud and data centers. So we just think we were able to be more capable for our customers, and that story has played out really well, just in terms of the growth. And this is complex processing. This requires a high level of expertise, and the thing that I'm always struck by is just the caliber of the talent at SS&C. As the industry's changed, as investment management has gotten to become so big and so complicated, and in the search for alpha and the quest to remain competitive, the quest to be a one-stop shop, right? All of a sudden, you've got to have a private credit offering. You've got to have, a long-only offering. You've got to have a retail alts offering. And when your business becomes more and more complex, all of a sudden, the needs that you have from your providers also need to match the complexity of the investment manager, of the client. And I think that combination of expertise, which we have in droves, with technology that we have in droves, has really led to, a successful outcome for us.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I'd not picked up on that one about Madoff being a catalyst for a transformation of the sector. But the regulatory driver there and the fact that you're technology first with the complex domain and operations capability just sort of leads into what was going to be my next question, actually, about the dual role strategy, because most firms are generally a service provider or they're a software company or a technology provider, but SS&C is consciously both. And if I'm right, you own almost a couple of hundred businesses, technology.
Yeah, products. We got 200 plus products that are available to the market, and the flexibility in our delivery model is what's unique too. In terms of, as a sales guy, I always loved it, right? And I still love that I can, really take a consultative approach to understand what your business drivers are: short term, long term, challenges, opportunities. Who do you want to be? What is your operating model? What should that look like? And then how can we help you build that? And I've got enough tools in my kit that I can deliver software that you deploy, software that I deploy for you, software that I use on your behalf, and any kind of combination of those options, which lead to, more calibration. That you can be more calibrated, and you can do it with a single partner, right? Or a partner like SS&C that can offer so much. That's what we have always strived to be, is a ever broadening portfolio of deep capability for our customers to take advantage of. And we also, the two other things that are great, I think, in terms of our ability to execute at speed and quality, are that we're not a bank and we're not a global, systemically important financial institution. We're not really regulated like one, right? We operate in highly regulated jurisdictions and adhere to, the highest levels of that sort of thing. And so you can trust. We're a public company. We've been around 40 years. We're serving some of the largest, most complex institutions and regulated industries globally. But not being a bank, we think allows us to move, as well.
Yeah. And it's actually what we strive to do on the consulting side, is bring the business understanding and the technology together so that you can, whatever you implement, you do it in the context of driving a business outcome directly. And you're not doing these isolated technology installs that just don't fit with the workflow of the operation. So that really sort of brings to life the strategy of overlaying services on the technology products. I mean, how do you think the clients benefit when the technology provider is also the one running the operations?
Well, I think it's a virtuous cycle or a virtuous circle, which is where our technology gets better and better because we use it, right? We're the largest user of many of our products. So take Geneva, which is, the flagship portfolio management accounting tool for complex investment management. We've got thousands of people internally that are power users of that product. So the firms that use it themselves too, externally, the investment managers are benefiting from the investment that SS&C is making, and that development feedback loop that's so tight because it's within the four walls of SS&C. So the people that are using Geneva on behalf of a big global $50 billion hedge fund are sitting right down the hall from the developers of Geneva. And so that can't be understated, the value of that software development, sort of feedback loop that we take advantage of. And then the services are also better because you're not beholden to third parties. Like I don't have to go to a vendor and potentially wait in line or get stuck with a really big bill that's only representative of maybe some demand that they're trying to balance. It's if I'm the services arm of SS, and I need changes based on accounting pronouncements or regulatory changes or new asset classes that have popped up, or integrating private assets with public fund strategies, that ability to control the underlying source code and have the technology teams within the same room allows those services that you're offering to be that much better too. So it is that kind of virtuous cycle that we think is sort of our special sauce.
Yeah, I love that sort of flywheel effect of providing the client value and proximity to feed back to the product teams and improve the service. Do you think that model creates a moat, competitive barriers? I mean, you said you're the biggest in the sector. Are you finding that you have a very strong competitive position as a result of this, or are there other people trying to emulate what SS&C are doing?
I think we do have a competitive moat, right? I think we do have a competitive advantage because of that, special sauce, that virtuous cycle, that tech and expertise, right? We are, always looking behind us, looking around us, see how big our moat really is, right? So we're not resting on our laurels at all. And part of, we've done, I think, 75 or so acquisitions in the history of SS&C, some really big, some not as big, but all kind of, with the philosophy of if we can't build it fast enough, we have to go buy it because our customers need it, and we want to be the ones to deliver it for them as a strategic partner, right? And yet, hey, the world, as we all know, it's constantly changing. It's moving faster. You've got Claude Code and Cursor and Replit and Lovable. All of a sudden, moats that were there in certain cases go away.
Yes.
We think that we have a high barrier to entry because of how complex the things we do with and for our customers are. So we're not as nervous about, AI generated software competitors taking Geneva's market share away. But what we are paying really close attention to is the AI space in general, because that is absolutely going to bring costs down, bring the ability to service clients up, create unique differentiators for those that can apply this powerful technology. So we're aware of the competitors in our space and what they're doing, and we watch them closely, and we watch the market closely, which is, look, I mean, it's why we bought Blue Prism, right? Blue Prism's a great asset. It's a pioneer in the, robotics space. We combined it with our business process management system, Chorus, which we got as part of DST. So DST Systems, which is a big acquisition we did in 2019. We saw that the world was becoming more and more automated, right? It's a really competitive industry that we operate within. It's competitive for talent. There's constant fee pressures and expense pressures, which, kind of flow from clients into their service providers. You had the great reshuffle or the great resignation post-COVID. So we knew that we needed to invest in automation in a big way. So we bought a company for 1.7 billion, right? And then we deployed it far and wide, because that's core to our philosophy. Is we want to be the largest user of our software because we know how beneficial that is. And that story's played out really well too, which we can kind of get into at some point,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's now or in the future. But we are confident in our competitive moat. We are constantly investing, and we're paying attention.
That's, I mean, that is really, it's an interesting point, because for those of us in the sector, Blue Prism was the first, I think, on robotic process automation.
Yeah.
And in its IPO year was the highest riser, and lots of eyes on their progress. And it was, for a period, I think it was a bit mixed, right? Because people were deploying bots in isolated instances, not using all their licenses and so forth. And the market had started to move more towards intelligent automation, now AI. So for some, that would be an interesting sort of, I wonder why they bought that. But I've seen what you've done with it within SS&C, and perhaps we can talk about that a bit, because the new Blue Prism AI orchestration capability is probably not what the audience would have remembered from 5-10 years ago, and it fits really neatly with the complex workflows that you're running for clients.
Yeah, for sure, right? It's fast moving, it's changing, we're keeping pace, and the fact that what happened, right? And I took over management of the business, sort of late last year. It has flown by, I could tell you that. But what we had done for the previous 2.5 years was made sure we got that deployment up and running. Right. So we got people trained up, we got people certified internally at SS&C, because there was a huge mandate to get that deployed, right? We wanted the cost savings. We wanted the cost avoidance. We wanted to take frustrating manual work off of our people's plates, right? These are experts that we want satisfying customers. So the last thing we really need them doing is, things that a machine does better and should be doing, right? So we deployed it far and wide. We got it really self-sufficient, but that was a big effort, right? And that was led by the Blue Prism organization, in conjunction with the various business units. So whether it's, GID serving mutual funds, or Globop serving alternative funds, or SS&C Health, with its pharmacy benefits management capability, or so on and so forth. And so kind of what I looked at and what we started to look at was, well, how are we using it, right? I mean, how are we using this capability? Because we should be able to productize these use cases. I mean, these are already deployed. This isn't, a horizontal technology capability that hasn't been, kind of put together in a way that drives business outcomes yet, right? That's kind of what Blue Prism and other automation capability has always been, is horizontal, right? So not any one industry, therefore not really all that much expertise in any one industry. So then you combine Blue Prism with SS&C, where we've got, a high level of financial services and healthcare expertise. And then you start looking at this far and wide deployment, and, sort of what dawned on me was we already have AI agents all over this place. Now, I don't know that these right now are able to be packaged up and right, because they were developed internally for a business use case in a services business. But it was impressive workflows that we were automating utilizing AI. And if you go back a little further, what happened was you had all these people doing all this work for these demanding, complex clients, and now they had access to automation technologies that they didn't before. These folks were the ones saying, I actually need to be able to use LLMs. I need AI tools. I need more AI in my automation toolkit to be able to do more, to force multiply, to be more effective. And as we were, as an organization, looking to provide LLMs and AI toolkits to our people, we really kind of paused and said, all right, what business are we in? We're in a really complex business serving highly regulated customers in very high stakes industry. And we are the custodian of a lot of really important sensitive data, right? Whether that's position files or trade files or HIPAA information, GDPR information, really important sensitive information on behalf of highly complex regulated customers. We can't just allow this data to potentially go into a large language model. That would,
Right.
that has the potential to not be good. And I give a lot of credit to, our corporate technology team that said, you know what, we need governance. That's what we need. We need governance and we need guardrails because we need to provide this toolkit. So let's go look at what's in the market. And we looked at, the various tools that we could have acquired, and we didn't feel like it met our needs. We felt like there was such a high threshold for that, compliance and governance and safety and responsibility and security, that we built our own. So we call it AI Gateway. It's in production now. It's available to the market. But what it does is provide, a layer of, the ability to manage, right? To understand where LLMs are being used, what are they being used for, what's going in it, what's coming out of it, the ability to mask information, the ability to block information from leaving our four walls. We own, a bunch of GPUs ourselves. Our approach was, we need it, but we need to recognize that our whole business is based on trust.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We deliver mission critical capability to highly sophisticated customers that have trusted us and put their trust in us as a strategic partner and have done so for 40 years. We're not going to allow for unmanaged AI to potentially harm that trust or harm their businesses.
No.
So now, after rolling out AI Gateway and seeing how these use cases have evolved and how many AI agents we have in production at SS&C, the evolution of Blue Prism has now become, the moment we're in is productizing those and selling those to the market. So and I'll tell you, when I took over and I started doing my own market analysis and getting closer to the business and reading all these books on intelligent automation and agentic automation, I was like, man, I'm gonna find out how far behind I am. And after a little while, I realized, no, we're actually in a really, really good position because we're delivering outcomes, we're delivering solutions using AI in a way that isn't overwhelming, right? And we're doing it securely and responsibly and safely for our customers.
Yeah. Look, and I've seen a little bit of what you're doing, and I would agree. I mean, it's a super high trust, high governance environment, and the services you're providing on the technology that uh, you own is the backbone of your business, and so that has to work, and it has to work in a safe and compliant way. But as of today, I think, if I'm right, sort of 3,000 digital workers that you've deployed across the business, and they're driving a whole bunch of mission critical processes.
Yeah, and counting, and counting. I mean, that there's no letting up on that, right? Because there's so much processing that we're doing,
Can you give us
right?
an
And
example? What sort of processes are SS&C running on these digital worker workflows?
yeah, and increasingly AI agent workflows, because what I'm seeing, and I talk to all the people I've worked with for the last 15 years, the people that
Yeah,
are delivering services to these clients, is one, there's been a ton of uplift, and they're my best reference, right? Like I treat them like third party clients when I'm trying to, when we're in a sales effort, right? But everything from simple data, you know, entry validation, so on and so forth, to really complex workflows. Especially, I would call out the investor servicing arm of Globot. They've really taken our capability to the next level in terms of how they've deployed it for things like contract notes and investor onboarding. Because what's happening in especially in alternatives, but really the combination now, or the coming together and the consolidation of alternative and traditional investments. You talk about complexity, like those are the most complex clients we have. And so any technology tools that allow for the automation of really complex standard operating procedure manuals, because these things are thick, right? And so applying these technologies to those standard operating procedures that can be, I mean, you can't. There's no threshold for error, right? So, and you're dealing with up to 15, 20,000 investors that are investing in an infrastructure style fund, right? Whether it's set up as an interval fund or a tender offer fund or some other novel structure. Um, you know, we really have seen uplift, and we've seen an unlocking of the ability to handle more and more complex investment strategies. And I will call out retirement solutions too, right? So their innovative combination of utilizing the traditional RPA with document ingestion, document understanding via LLM capabilities has led to what we think is a revolutionary capability in the retirement processing space. So 401ks and other retirement plan onboarding that requires the processing of so much documentation, different documentation from the user, documentation from the plan administrator, with contingencies that now, because our experts get their hands on tools that allow them to apply it to real world examples within the four walls of SS&C on behalf of customers in real time, you've got just a really good story, right? Because then we can take that and together go to market with that new capability that we built inside of that services business.
yeah. So it's complex investor service flows, retirement flows, anything that's a complex workflow with lots of documentation and multiple
Yeah.
stakeholders, and yeah,
The documentation is where we've seen, document gesture, document understanding has been, I'm sure, it wouldn't be lost on anyone that's, applying AI to true, business processes, is that ability to take those, 40, 50, 60 page documents that change, right? And, that's always been the knock, right? On RPA is it's a little bit brittle, right? Because once a data point changes, your automation kind of breaks.
yeah,
But because you can now layer in this smart technology that can take that documentation and still find those five needles in the haystack in terms of the information that you need to pull out in order to automate a financial services workflow, that's been like tremendous for us.
yeah. And you've really moved from RPA to agentic AI across all of these different functions. What's perhaps the most surprising result you've seen from that evolution, from combining RPA with Gen AI?
I'm energized, but also was a little surprised. I mean, it's a good surprise. Is just how accurate we've made it, right? I mean, we're bypassing proofs of concepts with clients because they're just so surprised at how accurate our first run of a document was, and they're saying, you know what, we got to bring a lot more people on this demo. We got to bring a lot more of these documents because you guys just wowed us with your ability. And we've got, proprietary evaluators, right? That we've put in place that kind of help us be better. Right? So use these tools, at scale in a way that produces a high level of accuracy. So that's one thing that surprised me. But
Yeah.
nothing. I don't think anything's really, surprising in the world of AI right now. I mean, whether it's spicy mode in Grok or we kind of talked about like what I read, and we could, like I read LinkedIn.
Yeah.
It's just the LinkedIn feed has just gotten so valuable in terms of the AI content that is shared, whether it's Aaron Levy at Box or Sonia at Bain Capital Ventures, who's one of the leading voices, or Chip Huyen. There's just there's so many smart people in this space doing so many novel, creative, groundbreaking things that it seems to be like the only thing I'm reading is my LinkedIn feed.
Yeah, I mean, I always ask people what they're reading on the show, and LinkedIn's right up there. And there's academics on my network, and I've said, "Oh, what's your next paper?" And they said, "Well, I don't really publish papers anymore. I write on LinkedIn."
Yeah, that's been a great pivot. It's funny. I like reading books too, and I'm usually reading. I usually switch between fiction and nonfiction. But I picked up this book, and it's just so out there in terms of what I would have typically read. But it's called Dungeon Crawler Carl, and there's 7 of them, and he's still going. And it's just it's a fan. But I'm on book 4 because I can't put it down. So usually I'm going between some sort of professionally enriching or historical sort of biography to something a little bit more fun. But this is just too much fun.
Well, that's a good answer to my first question, which is how do you context switch away from the business? So, go and read about Dungeon Crawler Carl. So we'll put that one in the show notes when we get to that.
I don't think that's one that typically would have made it on the London Fintech Podcast.
Top 100 business books, right?
Yeah.
So we talked quite a lot about RPA and AI. I mean, the other mega trend alongside AI in the sector is digital assets. And we were talking ahead of the show, and actually there's an episode that I think we published today, which will precede this conversation, which is all about digital assets, and that's with Franklin Templeton, who are prolific in the sector. So alongside automating your specialized servicing and all of the complex stuff we've just been talking about, we've now got digital rails and digital wrappers, and we've got tokenized funds, and we've got stable coins, and we've got all those things. So what's your thought on SS&C's positioning in the rapidly digitizing market, and how are you positioning to be a player in this new landscape?
We have paid attention to the space since it really got going. A lot of the demand from SS&C in the digital asset space was digital asset fund administration in the early days, and we were reticent to get involved because we just thought there was too much risk involved, like valuation risk and liquidity risk, and all of a sudden we're left holding the bag as the third party administrator if something go wrong, and just the amount of Mt. Goxes and hacks and things. So we kind of just from a fund admin space kind of stayed away, but know everybody at Coinbase and all those great folks. So definitely an area that we've stayed abreast. And we have also, I mean, we are bullish on blockchain, right? I mean, that's something that, again, like AI is sort of just different, right? Because it's just so obvious how relevant it is. And if you can apply it safely, then you're going to see that uplift. And we think the moat we have with all the expertise, purpose-built technology, all these great clients that have trusted us for so long, we're going to be able to make AI work in a big way. Blockchain required a little bit more of a network effect and consortium effect, and for blockchain to have come in and kind of replaced the custodians at the time, right? I don't think the custodians were going to let that happen, right? And there've been some interesting things like with Northern Trust and others, in the blockchain space, but nothing that has been so revolutionary. But just in terms of where the market is going from a settlement perspective and a distribution perspective, especially in the public space, right? Mutual funds and others, ETFs, we've been piloting and experimenting with and implementing blockchain within the SS&C GIDS Global Investor and Distribution Solutions business, which is our transfer agency. And we just announced, like, like you're aware, the deal with Calstone,
Yeah.
which is a, kind of a planting a flag in the ground, right? Because they've done a great job in general building up that network that we get to tap into, and the things they're doing around tokenized funds and on chain processing. We think that's going to accelerate, right? Once you combine it with our automation capability, with our own mutual fund and regulated fund expertise. So yeah, space to watch. I'm not as close to it right now, but yeah, really excited to see how that helps us and our clients.
Yeah, it's picking up pace, and blockchain, of course, has been around for more than a decade as well, and has been sort of bubbling under. But in the last, 12, 24 months, and particularly now, it just feels like everything's happening all at once. So the actually, I can share this. It's out now. The conversation I had with Sandy Call at Templeton,
Yeah,
which was
sure. Yeah.
at the time of recording was yesterday. Was that her view was 20% of the leading institutions were sort of fully invested in digital rails
Mm-hmm.
this year, but by next year it'll be 50%.
Wow.
And that is a pace, and we're seeing tokenized money market funds and ETFs
Sure.
and stable coin adoption going through the roof. And
Yeah.
so this is, certainly in Sandy's view, this is the next 50 years of the industry, so never a dull moment.
No, for sure.
And
For sure
we're
not.
interested to see what the Calastone deal brings. Is that closing this year? I don't know whether you can say when that's all coming together.
Yeah, I don't know. This year is quickly
Really
going
fast.
away. So I'm not sure on the
Yeah.
closing timeline for Calstone.
Yeah, well, let's talk about looking forward a bit for a few minutes before we time out. But any predictions from you, Rob, for the sector? And we've talked about some of the major macro trends and things that are changing the whole platform and the environment. But anything that you would call out as something that we should look forward to?
I mean, I think it's kind of like the tail end of my tenure operating for so long within the fund administration space. The proliferation of retail alts isn't slowing down. Those who really get it right are going to win and win big. You've now got the 401k market that's finally starting to look like it could crack open for alternatives. So that'll be really interesting too. You've got private credit that continues to steamroll forward, and that I think it was PIMCO and Blue Owl did the deal with Meta, which was kind of a watershed moment for that industry. And there's so much complexity in all that stuff, and that's where we think the ability to combine expertise with technology with AI, right, to really unlock more and more straight through processing. That's where we're going to invest, right? And I think the collaboration at SS&C anyway between myself, the other business unit heads, the councils we have on agentic and AI and what we're building and what we're building together, right, to bring the unique capability set of SS&C together. I think that's one thing that's going to be. It's something I'm definitely invested in, but I think everybody at SS&C sees it too.
Yeah, you're going to keep you energized for some time. And what do you see perhaps as the biggest opportunity for investment firms out there currently?
The biggest opportunity for investment firms. I mean, it's really competitive, right? So I think, there's so many smart people that operate within these investment firms, that, to continue to, delight your customers in a cost effective way, with speed, efficiency, with scale, with product differentiation, with a global ability to think and act globally. Those are the firms that are going to win, right? Obviously, niche and specialist and small and whatnot. There's always going to be room, but like the maturity curve, what happens in these industries is barbells, right? That middle kind of goes away, right? And it just becomes the major dominant players and then the really, really specialist players. So we're still in that. I think we're still in that sort of, kind of evolution period.
There's the opportunities to get on the front foot with AI and with digital assets, and the mirror of that is perhaps the threat of not paying attention in an environment that's moving so fast.
You got
Is there anything that's up next from SS&C? We talked about obviously the Cadastone deal as is a big thing. Anything else that's waiting in the wings that you can talk about?
I mean, there's always great things going on at our firm. There's projects that are being worked on. There's, novel application of technologies to things that, haven't been done before. There's acquisitions that we look at, and there's some really unique assets out in the market, right? Small and large. But I think we talked about a lot of what, we can expect from SS&C, which is a, heavy investment in AI, a heavy investment in the Blue Prism business. We're a talent magnet too, right? So when you look at the kind of people that are coming on board and really providing value, not even just within my own organization, but my organization has been a exemplar of being a talent magnet over the last 6 months or so. You get something special when you get people in an environment that they're able to move with speed and apply their own big brains to solve complex challenges. You just naturally get great outcomes. So we're definitely one to watch. We've got our SS&C Deliver conference coming up in Phoenix, which is always a great way to see what's going on, all things SS&C. So that's in October, and for folks that listen in, we'd love for you to take a look and consider coming.
Yeah, and watch out for next generation agentic driven asset servicing across the whole sector because, well, it's already here. Actually, if you want to find out more about that and talk to Rob about perhaps how SS&C might be able to help your business, where do they go?
ssctech.com. That's the best place to start. And if you ask Tony for my phone number and email, I'm sure he'll give it to you. But I'm always available. We're a very commercial driven firm. We're very client centric. We're very available. So I may have a 5-week-old, but I'm more than happy to be of assistance to your listeners.
Yeah, and as we've already heard that you're on LinkedIn a lot, you're pretty easy to find anyway. Rob, look, thank you for taking time. We covered quite a lot there, and I really hope the audience found it interesting. I certainly did. Really enjoyed the conversation, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. It was great speaking with you today, Tony.